Welcome back to Scale Out a Guy's Workbench. Today we're working on the AMT GMC Jimmy. I've heard a lot of good and bad things about this kit. You can build it either stock or drag. It gives you all kinds of different components to build those two versions, or you can mix it up a little bit however you want to and build your own custom version. On the back here you can see all of the parts trees, and I'm going to show you those here in a minute. And well, let's start with the body. Well, right here we have the body and the interior. It's just sitting in there, it's not attached. But I was looking at this kit, looking at all the parts on the parts trees, and there is a considerable amount of flash. Not so much on the body, but you can see it here on the interior. That's just some of it. The body looks pretty straight and even. I don't see any noticeable warp there. But this is the point of contention with most people, is this roof. And well, you can see by the tree, it's not really straight. And if you look at it straight on, you can see it's dipped down in this corner. And that's the rear window. And you can see that it's pretty well warped up too. I'll have to do the hot water treatment on that to get it straight. Either that or, well, the roof line I might be able to fix, but I'll have to permanently attach it to the body. In this bag, of course, as usual, I never take these parts out of the bags until I need them. But this is your front and rear and side glass, as well as your headlights and tail lights. Like I said, I usually leave those in the bag, just like the metal axles. I leave those in the bag too until I need them. On this first parts tree, you have your seats and your hood and your tailgate, and you can see the flash. Now, of course, that's on the tree, but this up here on the seat, yeah, that's all going to have to be trimmed off. And that's fine. I mean, that's part of building, right? So, of course, it's always better to have zero flash, but on an older kit like this one, now, even though this is a 2022 issue, this kit has been repopped I don't know how many times. Here's your engine, and of course it's got considerable amount of flash on it as well. This tree has all your suspension parts, and this doesn't look that bad as far as flash goes, but the detail isn't real crisp on it. Now on this next tree is mostly interior parts, inside of your tailgate and your dashboard. On the decal sheet, now they do have the molded in gauges here, but the decal sheet does come with dash decals, so that makes detailing that dash all that much better. Here's your frame and exhaust system. This again has lots of flash on it that has to be cleaned up. So I'm probably going to spend at least an hour cleaning up all the flash on all of these parts. Here's some more of your interior parts, and of course, again, more flash. Up next is your chrome parts. Can't complain about the brightness of the chrome. It's very bright, very gleaming, which is nice, but the tree itself is pretty well warped. I don't think that affected any of the parts on there, but we'll have to wait and see. Next is the decal sheet, which they give you a couple of different versions. You can build the Jimbo, Top Jimmy. They give you a bunch of license plates. Here's the dash decals I was talking about. and your side marker lights and badges. And if you feel like being building a sponsor car, you got plenty of sponsors there. Trust me, I'm saving the best for last. Here comes the direction sheet. It's pretty large. Good pictures. For those of you who have trouble reading small print and what have you, like myself, I enjoy the larger direction sheets. Not that I always go by them, but sometimes I like to look at the direction sheet if I come across a part that I'm not sure where it goes or I don't recognize it. Now, the last part of the kit, they give you Master drag tires, which are slicks, which for a four-wheel drive, I don't know that that's appropriate. They give you the racing version. Okay. 4 of those. They give you 5 of these no-name, just regular stock tires. In my opinion, those are a little too small for this vehicle, or at least they would, to me, they would look kind of, I don't know. Yeah, they could look kind of small. So, that's your 2 wheel choices. Or, if you are resourceful and you're lucky enough to have a small stash of parts, you can come up with something like these here. Now, these come from a Dodge Dakota kit that I once destroyed trying to build a mashup of something else. But I got the tires left over from it. These are Goodyear Wranglers. They're raised leather, but they're not white leather. And by chance, the wheels from this Jimmy fit it beautifully, with one exception. If you go with the drag wheels, they're just deep enough that they protrude out from the back, giving like no room for the wheel backs. I've already come up with a solution to that problem, and it's not going to be a big deal. The other alternative is... this popped out. Hold on just a second here. The other alternative is the stock hubcaps, which will require no modification for the wheel backs. You see, you have plenty of room in there for that. But if I'm going to upgrade the tires to Goodyear Wranglers, I might as well upgrade the rims to the drag rims. So I think the drag rims look a little better than the stock hubcaps. I might save those stock hubcaps for another project, as well as the remaining tires. So, I'm impressed but unimpressed at the same time with this kit. I've heard some grumblings about it, especially with this warped roof. A lot of guys are upset about that, and I've heard a lot of people complaining. So, I'm going to have to straighten that out. Usually I run it, I go to the sink in the bathroom closest to my hot water heater, where I get the absolute hottest water, and I just run it under that and kind of shape it while it's heated, and then pull it out and let it, hold it in place and let it cool. And that usually gets most of the warp out of it. It's hard to get all of it, but I lose patience after a while with it and say, that's good enough. Okay, well, let me get started on flash cleanup and some sub-assemblies. I'll get the engine block together and et cetera, et cetera. And I'll see you at the paint booth. All right, fellas, I skipped ahead a little bit and got the suspension together. This was a little tricky because I had to snake the exhaust system in there. It's just kind of free floating right now. The way this front suspension goes together, you have the steering knuckles here with your center link. Well, the axles are two-piece. Then that glues onto your springs, and there's a lot of pieces involved right here. What I did is I had a piece of metal axle. I have piano wire here that I use for metal axles when I need to replace an axle or the kit didn't come with one. So I decided to cut a piece of it, and now I'm having trouble. Cut a piece of it. There it goes. Oh, and I just pulled it apart. See, this is the problem. I wanted to make sure that everything was lined up, and that didn't work out so well. So don't do what I do. Just glue the thing together. Oh my gosh. But as you can see, I have to do some touch-up painting, and now I'm going to have to re-glue that piece. Setting that aside, you can see this is the tire wheel choice that I went with. These tires are not included in the kit. The kit has skinny little street tires or racing slicks. That's your only two options. These tires came from my parts box, and they were previously part of the Dodge Dakota Snap Together kit. I tried to use that to kit bash something that just didn't come out right, and that ended up going in the broken trash heap of a parts box I have. But I did manage to save the tires, and it's fortunate that I did, because these wheels fit. They're just a little bit too narrow, and because they're a solid rubber, they don't fit the rims exactly. So what I had to do is the wheel backs, I had to sand them flat and then glue them to the back side of the wheel just to get them flush enough so that I can put those together and they look good. So I have to do a little bit of touch-up painting on these too, because you can see where I sanded the paint off of them a little bit. Oops. This one here didn't get painted at all. So that's just a little touch-up painting. That's not a big deal. I have the engine and transmission completed. That I did a couple nights ago. I just didn't film it. I've been in kind of a slump, so I need to get caught up. The body is just about ready to go. That is painted. I just have to do a real quick sand on it and apply the clear coat, and then that will be ready to be assembled. I have to get the rest of the chassis and the interior done. So let's get back to work. Let's get this done. I have a deadline to meet, and I know you guys are waiting for the next installment. So without further ado, let's get back to work. Okay, I've got all the chassis assemblies put together, and I have to tell you, you can't put in the drive shafts really until you put the engine in, obviously, but you can't put the drive shafts in with the engine glued in. So it's all got to go in together, and jumbling these two drive shafts and getting the engine in position, it takes a little bit of finesse. You have to work at it. It doesn't just pop together. Wouldn't it be nice if it did? But anyway, when you put the exhaust system in, don't glue it in back here when you're, putting the exhaust in. Don't glue it in first. make sure that you get the engine in before you put the exhaust system, attach the exhaust system, because it attaches to this cross member here. So this is it kind of has to be a little loose and moving around while you're getting the drive shafts and everything in. Once you get the drive shafts, the front and rear drive shafts in, and you get the engine attached to the chassis, then you can go ahead and attach attach the exhaust system to the manifold up here, and then to the cross member back here. This crossover pipe here, I just glued it in, so it hasn't really set yet, but it's not horrible to get in, but it is a little tricky. You have to start here in kind of this angle, and then get that pipe lined up on the manifold, and then swing it around and attach it to the pipe right here. To me, it doesn't make sense. Obviously, they go by the designs that General Motors had forwarded to them to make these kits, but it doesn't make sense to me to have that crossover pipe be so close to that drive shaft. Although in the full-size vehicle, I imagine there's probably 2 or 3 inches of clearance in there. You're going to have clearance anyway. Oh my gosh, can't even talk today. You'd have to have clearance there anyway, because of the suspension flex would drag this drive shaft right into your pipe, and that would make a heck of a mess and a lot of noise. I decided to go, even though the shock absorbers that I installed, these are for the drag race version, I looked at it as had a suspension lift, because when I fit the body onto the chassis, I just kind of test fit it, and I still have quite a bit of gap between the tires and the body. Thank God I went with the taller tires, because it would have looked really silly otherwise. I have seen this built on other channels, and they use the factory stock tires, and it looked a little goofy with real tiny tires and this body sitting real high off the frame. So let me flip this over. Let's see how it does. See if anything falls off. Nope. I got it. So, okay. The engine's still sitting, still sitting in the right spot. Okay, we have to let this glue dry up, and we're going to move on. I think the next step is the interior. I still haven't made up my mind how I'm going to go about doing the interior. Through my research online, the interiors were, a lot of them were two-tone, like the dash was, the top part was like black, and where the glove box and stuff was the body color, and then the gauges, around the gauges was black, and the seats were two-tone, and the door panels were two-tone. So I'm really going to have to think about how I want to do that interior. Right now it's just black. I don't want to go straight black on black. I've done that too much already, and it's getting a little old. So I'm going to have to think about how I want to do this, and I guess I'll be right back with that. It's bare metal foil time. Okay, fellas, here we are. Bare metal foil is almost finished. Oh my gosh, I forgot to do this up here. But anyway, this is it's pretty close. And I think it turned out pretty well. I am going to put in some paint just to accent the center of this trim piece. Now, the decal sheet does give you front and rear marker lights. Excuse me. I'm going to... I put the foil on the marker lights because I'm going to use paint. I'm not going to use the decals. I think the paint will look a bit better than the decals. I don't know. We'll see. If I put the paint on there and it doesn't look right, I can easily strip this foil off and put the decal on. So, okay, let me get these vent windows. I totally forgot to do the vent windows. I'm just going to do I'm not going to do on the A-pillar, just back here. So it's 2 little strips and I'm done. And here's the tailgate. And again, I'm going to accent paint that as well. And there we go. Okay, fellas, I tried to get this to where I could just set this on the body, and it did not want to sit there because of the slight warp in this roof section. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and permanently attached the top to the body. That's why I have these strips of tape here just to kind of hold it in place until the glue sets. As you can see, I've got all the windows in now. I even had to glue the tailgate and the back window shut because of the warp that was in this window frame, and there was just an ever so slight warp in the body halves. This one here was just ever so slightly higher than this one, so in order to get them to line up, I had to physically glue the tailgate in place. So that straightened up the body, and getting the top on here and getting it glued in place is going to help with the rigidity of the body. And when I go ahead and put this all together, it should fit nicely. I've already tried to test fit it, and it fits really nice. So in the final assembly, I should not have any issues with things being out of a line. So let me finish this up. I got a few more things to do, I got the engine compartment all painted up. I still have a couple little things I got to put in here, the battery and such. So I'm almost done. I'll be right back with the final. Welcome back to the final. Here we are with the GMC Jimmy from AMT. I built this mostly stock. I did use some of the racing parts, but mostly stock. The racing parts were the wheels, the shock absorbers, front and rear. I borrowed some parts from another kit for the engine, and I'll show you those in the stills at the end. I did have some problems with this kit. Now, just because I had problems with this kit doesn't mean that you're going to have problems, but here's what the problems I had with. This rear window frame was really twisted. I had a heck of a time getting that glass to glue in there. And then I tried to hinge it there, but it wouldn't sit in the back of the top correctly. So, because of that, and because the flimsiness of the body, I glued the tailgate and that top glass